Stop. Stop fixating on what's missing. Stop replaying what hasn't shown up. Stop explaining why the money hasn't landed, the door hasn't opened, the client hasn't called, or the breakthrough hasn't happened. I tell you this by divine authority. It's not your actions that have caused the delay. It's your words. You've spoken aimlessly, and idle words hold no power. You've spoken doubt, and doubt dissolves your harvest before it even ripens. You've spoken fear, and fear blocks the channels through which divine provision would flow. You've said, "I'm trying," and that phrase alone shuts the floodgates of heaven, because heaven doesn't respond to trying, it responds to knowing. It obeys the voice of one who declares something and knows it will be established. So, I ask you, soul of God, have you spoken like a ruler, or have you whispered like a beggar? Have you released the word that commands abundance, or have you pleaded for the wind to change? Let me tell you, once and for all, the wind doesn't change until the word is spoken, and that word must be spoken in faith, without fear, without hesitation, without delay. It is written, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Not in the beginning was the worry, not in the beginning was the work, not in the beginning was the waiting. It was the Word. The Word came before form. The Word commanded light into darkness, waters into seas, humanity from dust. So why would you try to change your circumstances without first changing your declaration? Why would you alter the soil without first altering the seed? Every word is a seed. Every tongue is a planter. You are not a victim of delay. You are a creator through command. The tongue in your mouth is your scepter, and the law is clear. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. What are you speaking? I tell you boldly, a billionaire's words aren't powerful because of their bank account. They're powerful because of their declarations. They don't wait to be chosen. They declare themselves worthy. They don't ask if the door will open. They speak to it, not in fear, but with authority. And the door swings open because the word has gone before them. You must speak as though the treasure is already yours, because spiritually, it is. Now hear this, and let it settle in your spirit. A poor person begs, a king declares, a pauper waits for proof, a prophet sends forth the word. Which will you be? The divine cannot be fooled. Your speech has been accounted for. Your word is your powerful tool, and if you've used it in confusion, you've caused delays. But today is your divine interruption. Today I've come to say, stop speaking like a slave to circumstances. Speak like a manager of supply. Speak as one whose inheritance isn't in the bank, but in the spirit, not in the economy, but in the eternal. I understand this law. I've seen it deliver homes, partners, bountiful results, and healing. I've seen the word reorganize reality, turn scarcity into abundance, drought into downpour. But it doesn't come from hope. It comes from certainty. So I ask you now to set aside the hope that begs and adopt the speech that builds. Say this with me, not softly, not skeptically, but with spiritual strength. I speak words of wealth. I speak as one with divine authority. I speak, and it is done. You've tried speaking facts. Now speak with power. You've tried telling stories of lack. Now declare abundance. You've waited for others to see your worth. Now command it into visibility, for your tongue isn't for explaining, it's for executing. And if you dare speak like one who cannot be denied, then you won't be. Heaven and earth will pass away, but the word, your word rightly spoken in the Spirit, will not return empty. It will achieve its purpose. It will succeed. It will establish you in every good and perfect thing. Let this be the line drawn today. Let this be the day you stop murmuring from need and start commanding from truth. For you weren't born to chase coins. You were born to summon kingdoms. You weren't born to repeat limitations. You were born to call forth abundance. You weren't born to echo the cries of lack. You were born to sing the song of sufficiency. So I say again, with spiritual fire and divine clarity, stop and listen. This is what happens when you speak like a billionaire. The wind begins to obey. The walls begin to fall. The treasury begins to tremble. The supply begins to run, not from you, but to you, because the word has gone forth, and it cannot fail. And now that you have heard the trumpet of truth, the only question that remains is, will you echo the old language of lack, or will you pick up your power and speak new wealth into existence? Stop reporting the shortage and start declaring the abundance. Stop describing the desert and begin announcing the rain. For the law is unshakable, unchanging, perfect. Nothing appears until it is first spoken. This is the law of the word, the law that governs all creation, all increase, all overflow. Your tongue isn't just for speaking. It's the tool of destiny. And if you misuse it, you miss your inheritance. In the beginning was not money. In the beginning was not labor. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became physical. And so I say to you, your word becomes your reality, your declaration becomes your deposit, your confession becomes your circumstances, your phrases become your finances. You are not broke because heaven is empty. You are broke because you haven't spoken. You are not stuck because the law has failed you. You are stuck because your mouth is still describing what is instead of decreeing what must be. Yet most people don't realize they are casting their own spells of poverty. With every casual phrase, I'm always struggling, money never lasts, I just can't get ahead. They are etching lack into the unseen, sending orders into the universe, commanding shortage to stay. But the law doesn't argue. The law doesn't ask questions. The law only obeys. And the law is always listening. When you say, I am rich, the law begins to create the container to hold it. When you say, money flows to me now, channels open. When you say, my supply is instant, perfect, and by grace, divine messengers are dispatched. You are never waiting on the money is waiting on your decree. So let the weak say, I am strong. Let the weary say, I am refreshed. And let the one with $5 in the bank say, I am divinely wealthy, permanently funded by the source of all that is. This is not delusion. This is dominion. This is not pretending. It is prophetic alignment. You are not lying when you say, I am rich, while your wallet is thin. You are speaking truth to override facts. You are invoking a higher law to overcome the current evidence. You are steering the ship of your life by the rudder of your tongue. And if you speak it long enough, loud enough, and lawfully enough, the external must submit to the internal. The visible must conform to the invisible. But here is a sacred warning. The law is a mirror, not a filter. It reflects what you send. It doesn't soften it. It doesn't rephrase it. It doesn't edit it for politeness or spiritual immaturity. If you say, I can't afford it, the law closes the gate. If you say, money always slips away, the law stops its circulation. If you say, nothing ever works for me, the angels step back and wait for a new assignment. But if you say, divine substance now pours into every corner of my life, the tide turns. If you say, my word is law in my world, everything listens, everything adjusts, everything arrives. It's because speech, not effort, is the true activator of abundance. So I say to you now, speak only what you want to increase. Speak only what you want to see reflected. Speak only what you want to experience. For every word you speak is a blueprint. Every phrase is a pattern. Every sentence is a spiritual contract. Tear up the old ones. Cancel every agreement you made with scarcity through casual language, and write new ones now boldly, rhythmically, daily. I am rich, I am funded, I am chosen by divine law to live in perfect supply. Say it again. Say it until the walls hear you, until the air vibrates with your authority, until your very cells hum with holy expectation. Your word is your powerful tool, your weapon, your wealth. Use it like law, use it like breathing. Use it like fire, and the world will have no choice but to reflect your sound. The universe doesn't respond to pleading. Heaven doesn't release treasure to the tone of desperation. The law of abundance isn't activated by need, by nervous prayers, by pitiful cries, echoing from the pit of not enough. It moves unfailingly at the frequency of certainty, of clarity, of spoken power. Yet I've watched countless souls sabotage their supply because their mouths remain stuck in the language of lack. They think they're being humble when they say, I just need a little bit. They think they're being wise when they say, I'm preparing for the worst. They think they're being responsible when they say, I hope it works out. But in truth, they are casting spiritual spells of limitation, sealing off their own increase with the wet cement of worry, piling fear upon fear with every breath they release into the atmosphere. I tell you, poverty isn't just a condition, it's a confession. Scarcity isn't just an experience, it's a vocabulary. You are not broke because of the market, your upbringing, or your job. You are broke because your mouth has built a mansion for lack to live in, one phrase at a time. Every time you say, I can't afford that, you lay another brick. Every time you say, money is tight right now, you bolt another door shut. Every time you say, I don't know where the money's going to come from, you command heaven to hold back your answer. These are not throwaway phrases. They are contracts, and the law keeps perfect record. The subconscious receives them as holy orders. The universe treats them as divine blueprints. And so the money hesitates, the clients vanish, the bills rise, and the soul cries, why is nothing changing? Never realizing that their very tongue is the trap. The beggar mouth believes its power lies in pity, but the spiritual laws I live by don't recognize pity. They recognize power. They recognize proclamation. They recognize precision. When you speak like a beggar, you summon more emptiness, more delay, more disorder. And still some will argue, but I'm just being honest about my situation. My dear, truth doesn't mean describing what is. Truth means declaring what must be. You are not called to report appearances. You are called to override them with your word. And when you speak from lack, you multiply lack. When you speak from fear, you reproduce fear. The law cannot be tricked. It returns what you send out. So let us put the beggar tongue to rest. Let us bury the broken vocabulary of I wish, I hope, I can't, I'm trying, maybe someday. Let us retire the resignation in the voice that once cried, just enough, and awaken instead the authority that boldly declares, more than enough now. Because until you give up the language of the beggar, you will never inherit the keys to the treasury. You cannot beg your way into divine wealth. You must declare it. Now let us rise. Let us ascend to the voice that wealth recognizes, the voice that angels obey, the voice that bends circumstances to its will, not by force, but by vibrational power. The billionaire tongue doesn't tremble. It doesn't whimper. It doesn't replay how bad things have been, or how unfair it seems, or how long it's taken. It speaks from the throne, not the doorstep. It speaks from the finish line, not the famine. It speaks from the realm of already done, not almost. And it doesn't apologize for sounding rich before the riches arrive. It knows that riches arrive to the sound of richness spoken. A spiritual billionaire doesn't say, I need. They say, it is done. They don't say, I wish this could happen. They say, it's already unfolding for me. They don't ask for permission. They give the order. And why? Because their voice is trained in divine identity. They speak not as beggars of the world, but as citizens of the kingdom. They speak not as orphans, wondering if the Father will notice them, but as heirs. Knowing that the inheritance has already been transferred into their name, they understand what Job declared. You shall also declare a thing, and it shall be established for you. Not hoped for, not waited on, not maybe, but established, locked in, manifested. I once taught a man who was drowning in debt, full of fear, calling me desperate for relief. And I said, stop describing the debt. Speak your abundance. He replied, but I have no money. And I said, exactly. That's why you must stop reporting the drought and start announcing the rain. So I gave him a phrase. God is my unfailing supply. And large sums of money come to me quickly, by grace, in perfect ways. I told him to speak it every morning, not as a chant, not as a ritual, but as a royal decree, as if the treasury of heaven was waiting on his command. And he did, not once, not twice, but daily, hourly, boldly, and in less than a week, a business contact he hadn't heard from in years called with a project that paid out 10 times what he had lost. Why? Because his voice changed, and the law responded. His language shifted, and money obeyed. This is what happens when you speak like a billionaire. You don't just report the account. You instruct the account. You don't wait for the evidence. You become the evidence. You don't describe lack. You declare law. You become the voice that governs abundance, not the mouth that complains about shortage. And everything in your world begins to adjust, because it must, because the law listens to the voice that sounds like heaven. Let us now go deeper into the truth, where the spoken word isn't just sound, but a blueprint, where every syllable is an architect's line, every declaration a beam laid into the foundation of your unseen abundance, and every uttered truth a command sent forth into the formless energies around you, waiting silently for your voice to break the quiet of delay and ignite the movement of matter. Because, you see, my dear listener, the world of substance isn't governed by economics. It isn't dictated by budgets. It isn't held hostage by numbers in a bank or conditions on earth. It is shaped, summoned, and structured by speech, by vibrational alignment, by the tone and texture of your word. And the more deeply you understand that your mouth wasn't given to describe what is, but to define what will be, the sooner you will rise from financial struggle into spiritual authority, the seat of those who build with breath and walk upon words. For it is written, "You shall also declare a thing, and it shall be established for you." And I say again, not thought, not hoped, not wished, but declared, spoken, sounded with authority, backed by faith, and infused with precision. Because a vague word builds a vague world, and a fearful word creates a fearful form, and a doubtful word invites delay to sit at your table and consume your dreams. But a spoken word of law, word that comes from the seat of certainty, from the consciousness of already done, from the inner chamber of divine knowing, this word cannot return empty. This word must build, must form, must produce, must appear, for it is backed by the very structure of heaven itself. And heaven keeps no record of delay, only alignment. You must understand then that your current reality isn't the result of your effort. It's the echo of your past language. Your present circumstances aren't fate's punishment, but the design of your past confessions. For every phrase you have spoken has placed brick upon brick, beam upon beam, into the invisible framework of your experience. And if your life feels shaky, if your finances feel unstable, if opportunities seem missing, it's not because God is withholding, but because your blueprint has been filled with scattered words, hesitant declarations, and emotional statements that conflict and cancel each other out like a house half built and then torn down with every angry sentence, every fearful sigh, every careless phrase of lack uttered in exhaustion and forgotten in the moment, but remembered by the law. So, I ask you now to take your words seriously. I ask you to step into the sacred understanding that your voice isn't just for expression, it is creative, causal, commanding, and when you speak with divine clarity, with holy precision, you don't simply try to change your life. You rewrite the architecture of your invisible world, and everything seen must follow. You must stop saying, "I can't afford that," and begin declaring, "Divine supply meets every demand, now." You must stop saying, "Money is hard to come by," and begin affirming, "Money flows to me with ease and grace." You must stop describing your desert and begin proclaiming your river, because the law doesn't ask if you deserve it. The law only asks if you've spoken it like a general commanding troops, like a conductor directing an unseen orchestra, like a king sending out decrees from his throne. Your word is your power, your sentence is your strength, and your phrase is your path into the treasury. And I tell you plainly, when your tongue aligns with divine substance, the invisible bends to obey, and money, yes, even money becomes obedient matter in the hands of a masterful declaration. You have been trained, deceived, and influenced to treat money as your master, to wake up each day and bow before the altar of dollars, to chase it as if it's the source of your safety, the gatekeeper of your destiny, the controller of your joy. But I've come to break that spell and to remind your soul of what it already knows, what it whispered to you in the quiet before fear took hold, what it shouted in the moment of vision before the noise of logic drowned it out, that money isn't your master. It is your servant, not your source. It is your result, not your reason. And the moment you stop kneeling before it and start commanding it in alignment with divine law, the moment you stop chasing the shadow and start inhabiting the light, the moment you stop working for money and begin speaking from authority, you will see with your own eyes the truth that has always been written. You are the cause, not the effect. You are the sender, not the seeker. You are the ruler, not the runner. For money is not a god to be feared. It is a tool to be managed. You see, I have spoken to many good, kind, honest people who have worked day and night, who have given, contributed, served, sacrificed, and yet remained stuck in financial difficulty, not because they lacked faith, not because they lacked morals, not because they lacked worth, but because they had never been taught to open their mouth and speak to money with the clarity of command. Because somewhere along the way, they believed the lie that money must be earned through suffering, chased through exhaustion, accumulated through anxiety, and in so doing, they handed their authority over to appearances. They gave up their divine power and struggled in the dust of worldly challenges, and the law, always faithful, obeyed their vibration, not their desire. But let me say this plainly. Money is not your source. God is your source. Divine substance is your source. And it doesn't operate by struggle or begging, but by law and alignment. As long as you believe that your job is your source, you will fear losing it. As long as you believe that the economy is your source, you will tremble with its ups and downs. As long as you believe that clients, bosses, contracts, or governments are your source, you will always be at the mercy of something outside yourself. But the moment you return to that inner place, the moment you remember, my supply is spiritual, not material, the moment you declare, God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly, by grace, in perfect ways. Something begins to shift, not just in your bank but in your very being, not just in your paycheck but in your posture, because the real miracle isn't more money. It is more authority. Florence Scovel Shinn wrote, I do not limit God by seeing limitation. I see abundance. I speak abundance, and abundance appears. And I add to her sacred rhythm this declaration. I don't beg for what is mine by divine inheritance. I don't chase what is already aligned. I don't seek from separation. I summon from unity. Money obeys my voice not because I am arrogant, but because I am aligned. Not because I am loud, but because I am legal. Not because I manipulate, but because I understand the law. What is spoken in truth must appear in form. The king doesn't chase the coin seeks the crown. And you, dear listener, are crowned with divine authority. You are not meant to follow money like a lost dog, hoping for scraps. You are meant to speak it into its right position, to assign it a task, to direct it like a servant who answers the call of spiritual decree. When you speak as the source, you break the chains of need. When you speak from the source, you multiply the currency of heaven. When you speak as one who governs, the very thing you used to chase begins to chase you. And money becomes a river, not a blockage, a flow, not a fortress, a servant that listens, not a master that mocks. So I ask you now, what would change in your life if you truly believed that money obeys your voice? What would change if you said with conviction, I don't work for money. Money works for my words. What would shift if you stopped earning and started declaring? I tell you this, the entire landscape of your experience would reorganize itself to reflect the rhythm of your declaration. For the universe doesn't reward desperation. It rewards divine alignment. And the one who knows they are the source will never again speak like a slave. There once was a woman who had reached the end of what the world calls financial hardship. Her job had vanished. Her savings had crumbled. Her calendar was empty. And the weight of lack hung over her like a thick fog of despair. But something in her spirit, something eternal and true, something born of heaven and sealed in divine DNA whispered, you are not poor, you are powerful. And in that moment, with no proof in her pocket and no numbers to comfort her, she chose not to speak what was, but to declare what would be. Every morning, before doubt could find her tongue, she would rise and say with clarity and rhythm and certainty, unexpected doors fly open. Unexpected channels are free. The divine plan of my life now takes shape in visible, permanent, and glorious ways. And though her surroundings did not yet echo her statement, the vibration of her speech began to send out a signal beyond what eyes can see, beyond what banks can track, beyond what credit scores can measure. For she was not speaking into the air, she was speaking into the law. And law never fails to respond to a voice. And then, without effort, without searching, without stress, a letter arrived about a family inheritance she had long given up hope on. An estate tangled in bureaucracy had finally been released. Not because she fought for it, not because she forced it, but because she aligned herself with the only force that never misses its mark, the spoken word of spiritual authority. It wasn't her strategy that unlocked the wealth. It was her speech. It wasn't her struggle that moved the abundance. It was her holy declaration. And the same will be true for you if you will speak not from fear, but from faith, not from what is, but from what's written in heaven's record about your rightful inheritance. She didn't cry for rescue. She declared her rhythm. She didn't wait to be chosen. She chose her promise and gave it life through her words. And you can do the same. There was an artist, a man who had poured his soul into canvas after canvas, who had vision but no exhibition, talent but no buyers, who had spent years waiting for someone to discover him, praying for a break, hoping that somehow success would find him hiding behind quiet prayers and anxious hope. But one day, something within him shifted, not in despair, but in decision, a sacred interruption of the passive voice he had carried for too long. He said, if I am made in the image of the Creator, then I too must create not just paintings, but pathways, not just beauty, but boldness. And from that moment on, his tongue was no longer timid. It became a guiding light. Every day he declared, I now attract the perfect opportunity. My work is seen, valued, and funded through divine channels. I don't compete. I am appointed. At first, nothing changed until everything did. In the span of a few weeks, a collector visited a small pop-up showing and was so moved, not just by the art, but by the energy behind it, that he funded an entire gallery exhibition in the heart of the city. What changed? Not his work, it was already excellent. Not a world, it was already available. What changed was his word. What changed was his voice. What changed was his vibration. He stopped waiting to be discovered and started speaking like one who had already been sent. He didn't ask for an opening. He announced one. He didn't wait for wealth. He welcomed it. He didn't perform for pennies. He proclaimed his worth. And the law, faithful and exact, obeyed not his feelings but his phrasing. He didn't need more effort. He needed more authority. He didn't need a marketing plan. He needed a powerful mouth. And so do you. There was a father, tired of watching financial struggle diminish his family's joy. A man who worked multiple jobs and still found the refrigerator empty. Still saw fear in his partner's eyes, still heard the ache in his own body when bills arrived, before the blessing. But something sacred in him refused to believe that this cycle was God's plan. Though his bank account preached poverty, his mouth began to preach prosperity. Though his family history knew nothing but struggle, he chose to speak another story, to write another record in the spiritual archives of his bloodline. He stood in his living room one morning and said aloud, not to impress, not to perform, but to establish. The wealth of the wicked is stored up for the righteous, and I am righteous by faith. My children will not beg for food. I walk in overflow, and pass it on by spiritual decree. Every day, even as clients disappeared and costs rose, he maintained his declaration. He didn't describe the storm. He addressed the sky. He didn't replay the fear. He rehearsed the truth. And within months, the most unexpected partnership emerged. Someone he had helped for free years ago offered him ownership in a thriving business venture. And his income tripled overnight, not because he manipulated, not because he worked harder, but because he spoke it, planted it, and stood by it with spiritual conviction. His children saw a new father, not one who toiled, but one who taught. We don't chase riches, we release them. We don't bow to circumstances, we bend them with our words. What do these stories reveal? That wealth isn't the reward of effort. It's the echo of a declaration. That life doesn't respond to wishful thoughts, it responds to spoken law. That the unseen realm isn't won by silence, it is shaped by speech. These are not fairy tales. These are observations from the spiritual kingdom, and your life is no different. There is a sentence, simple in form but divine in function, that carries the vibrational signature of wealth, the spiritual authority of heaven, and the metaphysical blueprint of all supply. And when this sentence is spoken not from doubt, but from authority, not from panic, but from power, not as a question, but as a decree, it doesn't just float in the air as empty sound. It strikes the substance of spirit with the force of creation, the weight of command, and the heat of holy fire. And the sentence is this: God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly, by grace, in perfect ways. Do not rush past it. Do not whisper it. Do not nod politely. Speak it. Feel it. Let it roll from your spirit like thunder wrapped in velvet. This sentence is not a wish. It is a work order. It is not a hope. It is a hammer. It doesn't beg. It builds. It doesn't flatter. It forms. Now listen carefully, for this is sacred territory. This sentence works not because it manipulates the external, but because it aligns the internal with the eternal. It is a coded decree where each phrase carries power beyond its surface meaning. God is my unfailing supply. This is the foundation, the ground beneath your feet, the rejection of all lack, the sacred cancellation of dependence on bosses, banks, or budgets, the clear and final refusal to treat money as your source, and instead to declare the eternal as your infinite reservoir, your overflowing storehouse, your unshakable economy, your ever-present abundance, without condition or delay. This phrase alone dismantles fear. It breaks the chains of scarcity. It reclaims the soul's forgotten inheritance. When you say it, feel the limitations shatter beneath your feet. Then large sums of money come to me quickly. Not trickles, not someday, not in spiritual metaphors, but large, visible, tangible, spendable, traceable, specific amounts. This is where most fall short, for they are afraid to name their desire, afraid to sound greedy, afraid to speak large when they've been taught to whisper. But I say to you, with sacred boldness, large sums are not selfish. They are part of our divine agreement. You were never meant to live on crumbs. You were born for abundance. You are not selfish to ask for more. You are sacred when you prepare to manage the overflow. And when you speak this line, you are not asking. You are announcing. You are not pleading. You are proclaiming. And then we seal it in grace, under grace, in perfect ways, because this is not about struggle. This is not about trade-offs. This is not about stress. This is the gentle flow of spirit, the path of least resistance, the invisible arrangement of divine perfection, the arrival of wealth, not by competition, not by striving, but by divine order, sacred, structured, unforced, yet unstoppable. It means you don't chase, you receive. You don't panic, you pronounce. You don't bribe, you believe. This phrase turns the key in the treasury. It opens doors that were invisible to you. It reveals currents of divine supply already moving but unrecognized. And you, when you speak it with reverence, rhythm, and repetition, you don't just say a sentence, you send a signal. And I tell you now, say it slowly, say it strongly, say it as the CEO of your spirit, say it as the priest of your own household, say it until lack forgets your name, say it until your account reflects your authority. Say it as if angels are listening, because they are. Say it as if money is alive, because it responds. Say it because it is your birthright. Say it because you are done with begging. Say it because your wealth begins where your words begin. Before the treasury opens, the inner chamber must be cleansed. For no decree of power can pass through a blocked channel, and no word of authority can flow purely from a mouth still defiled by bitterness, resentment, or inherited limitation. So I ask you now to turn inward, not to judge, not to analyze, not to criticize, but to surrender to release from your being every echo of shame, every word ever spoken over you in ignorance, every phrase of lack you accepted without question, every subtle curse wrapped in the language of realism. And I declare before heaven and earth, I forgive all who have spoken poverty over me. Say it not as a nicety, but as a thunderclap of liberation. Say it not because they were right, but because you are ready. Ready to leave behind the inheritance of fear, ready to cleanse your subconscious of inherited scarcity, ready to purify your tongue so that what leaves it next will not be compromised, will not be caution, will not be a copy of your past, but a clear stream of holy command. Say it again. I forgive all who have spoken poverty over me. And now let us go further. I cast the burden of doubt on the Christ within, and I go free. Say it like you mean it. Say it as if a prison door swings open with every breath. Say it as if this is your final day of financial confusion. Say it as if you are placing every burden into the hands of divine intelligence. Every weight of how, every lie that says it's too late, every whisper that you missed your moment, place it now on the altar of the Christ within, and rise empty of fear, rise empty of outdated identity, rise empty of family scripts that told you wealth was for others. Rise as the one who now governs by word what others tried to earn by worry. Now, speak not from the dungeon of doubt, but from the throne room of divine entitlement, not from the cellar of survival, but from the courtroom of covenant, not from the hallway of hesitation, but from the command center of Holy Spirit rhythm. For you are not on trial, you are on assignment, and your word is not a defense, it is a decree. So say it and feel the ground shift beneath your spiritual feet. I don't chase money. I command it by the authority of the divine word in me. Say it again, louder. Say it until the vibration in your chest becomes a roar. Say it until lack bows its trembling head before your voice. Say it because your subconscious is recording. Say it because the universe is listening. Say it because angels are moving. Say it because wealth is waiting. You are not here to hustle. You are here to harmonize. You are not here to labor. You are here to legislate. And with every spoken sentence, you are writing spiritual law. Not suggestions, not just affirmations, but holy instructions delivered to the pathways of abundance, sent to the vaults of provision, launched into the bloodstream of divine economy. Say it now. Every dollar I need is seeking me now. Let that not be a metaphor. Let it be a magnetic law. Let it be your new financial gravity. You are not lost. You are located. You are not forgotten. You are destined. You are not poor. You are the portal through which heaven pours. Do not whisper this. Declare it. Every dollar, every opportunity, every contract, every investor, every business idea, every harvest from seeds sown long ago, every increase you forgot you asked for. Say it again. Every dollar I need is seeking me now. And now seal it. Seal it not with more instruction, but with thanksgiving. Seal it not with repetition, but with reverence. Seal it with the language of those who have already received. Thanksgiving is the voice of prophetic ownership. Gratitude is not a mood. It is a method of manifestation. So say it now, and say it with overflowing certainty, with reverent intensity, with the joy of a receiver, not the worry of a wishful thinker. I thank you, Father, for riches appearing before my eyes. Yes, say it with breath, say it with power, say it with gratitude, so rich, it removes any veil. You don't thank after it shows up. You thank because it has already arrived in the unseen and is now being drawn, shaped, molded, and moved into your realm. Speak again. Money comes to me richly, freely, and without delay. Say it like a river. Say it like rainfall. Say it as if you are under a waterfall of favor. Say it until your skin tingles and your soul shouts, Amen. Say it until you remember who you are. Not a beggar, not a borrower, not a someday saver, but a sacred speaker of divine economy. Money comes to me, not in stress, not in drips, not in debt, not in desperation, but richly, freely, and without delay. Say it once more. And this time, with all the certainty of heaven backing your breath. Money comes to me richly, freely, and without delay. And now we pause, not because the power has lessened, but because the treasury has heard you. And in the stillness between your declarations and your manifestation, wealth is moving, shifting, assembling, obeying. And now, beloved, having emptied your mouth of fear, having filled your spirit with declarations, having purified the temple of your tongue, and having summoned forth the divine wealth that always was, never withheld, only unspoken, I charge you, by the light of truth, do not return to the language of lack. Do not retreat to the vocabulary of victimhood. Do not, I say again, do not reverse the flow by speaking like one who has forgotten the authority they hold. For this isn't about hype, but about sacred identity, not about wishing, but about wielding, not about desperation, but authority. And authority means your mouth isn't a mirror. It is a mold, not a recorder of what is, but a designer of what will be, not a parrot of your past, but a prophet of your increase. So let me say clearly, and without compromise, never speak small again. Never apologize for declaring what has already been declared in the heavens. Never shrink your voice to make others comfortable. Never tiptoe around divine authority because someone else hasn't yet remembered theirs. You were born for this. You were made to create. You were sent to speak, to bless, to activate, to rebuild the ruins of your financial structure with bricks, made not of toil, not of timelines, but of truth, cemented with the mortar of bold and sacred declaration. So I remind you now, the word builds worlds. Let it build your wealth. The word forms substance. Let it form your surplus. The word commands angels. Let it command opportunity, favor, perfect timing, supernatural connections, wealth beyond your planning, abundance beyond your budget, riches that carry no sorrow, and provision so precise, it silences every critic, including the one that once whispered inside your own soul, this isn't just about money. This is a divine law. This is divine logic. This is a spiritual blueprint. This is the agreement made clear. This is the kingdom made tangible. This is the sound that comes before abundance. This is the language of kings and queens, of priests and prophets, of those who don't work for money, but command it by voice, by vibration, by divine legal authority. So speak the rhythm again. I walk in divine wealth. I speak from divine authority. I expect divine results. Say it again, slower, louder. Let every syllable sanctify your being. Let every phrase become your energetic signature. Let your voice open the gates of provision like a key fits a lock, like a lion's roar echoes through a valley, like a trumpet that signals the beginning of harvest. Let the word walk ahead of you and build the roads where your feet will tread. You don't need more struggle. You need more God. You don't need more overtime. You need more powerful speech. You don't need to prove your worthiness to wealth. You need to declare your oneness with it. You don't need to hustle your way into increase. You need to harmonize your way into overflow. And if all you had was your tongue, your truth, your tone, and your timing, you would have all you need to create, command, collect, and consecrate the abundance that already knows your name. So I ask you now, as you leave this sacred moment, this sanctuary of the spoken word, this throne room of financial transformation, if your words formed your fortune, what would you say today? What would you no longer say? What would you repeat, until the heavens reverberate and the earth rearranges itself to match the new script? Say it now. Say it clearly. Say it with finality. I walk in divine wealth. I speak from divine authority. I expect divine results. Let it be done for you as you have spoken. Let it be seen because you have declared. Let it appear not because you deserved it but because you decreed it. This is what happens when you speak like a billionaire, when your tongue no longer trembles but thunders, when your words are not questions but instruments, when your sentences strike gold in the spirit and draw it forth into form. It is done. Speak again tomorrow. Speak again until what you see matches what you've spoken. Speak again until silence is no longer your master and wealth is no longer a mystery. Speak again because you now know the truth. Your mouth is the gateway to every miracle.